Welcome, my name is Holly McQuillan. Elvin, Karana and I wrote this paper at the intersection of our research because we see an opportunity to use material-driven approaches to deeply integrate expanded notions of temporality for interactive and sustainable textile-based form in HCI. In light of the accelerating race between climate change and the world's economic ambitions, HCI's focus on human-centric technology has been extensively critiqued. However, over the years, a number of scholars have also drawn attention to the gap between theory and practice in sustainable HCI and the problems that it brings. While not made explicit in the discourse, material-driven approaches could be one way to help bridge this gap, and in HCI textiles, we see a clear intersection of these problems, as well as an opportunity. Over the last few decades, scholars in HCI have developed interactive, deeply provocative, and often beautiful textile outcomes. Looking at the discourse, we can see a drive to make textile knowledge more accessible and the development of physical and digital tools. There are many examples on the use of textiles as substrates for active and computational materials, and the use of interactive and smart textiles in the context of complex 3D form. However, the unsustainability embedded in the wider textile domain is compounded in HCI textiles through the use of problematic smart and electronic materials that combine disposable technology with textile waste. Modularity and design for disassembly are proposed solutions, however neither address the inherent unsustainability of existing production systems or supply chains. A desire to improve user acceptance in HCI textiles have moved the domain towards embedded materiality. While material-driven approaches in HCI textiles, such as material tinkering and making, unveil the potential for tuning textile qualities, making them more relevant in our daily lives, the more deeply we embed some of these materials, the more problematic circularity will become. Furthermore, addressing textile and form as separate components limits the degree of seamlessness and embeddedness possible, and underutilizes textiles' potential as inherently performative and multi-situated materials. So the question for us is, how do we achieve conformal and seamless experiences of HCI textiles, which are also sustainable? With this paper, we contribute a vocabulary to support the discussion of sustainability alongside material-driven design practices within textiles and HCI. Using a series of case studies from the literature, we articulate this interwoven design space situated between form, textile, and temporality, and introduce the concept of morphic textile form. In addition, we identify the opportunities and challenges that HCI design may encounter in this space, and in doing so provide prompts and places to start. To do it, we undertook a non-exhaustive but comprehensive analysis of existing textile-based objects. Our first criteria was for cases that simultaneously make the textile and form via the deposition of matter, fibre or yarn, a process known as textile forms. This resulted in 18 examples. 10 of those were categorized as static examples of textile form methods, covering knitted, 3D printed, molded, woven, and grown textile forms. The remaining 8 cases are morphic textile forms, which take temporality as a design element during design and/or use time. 2 of these explicitly address an holistic approach to sustainability, illustrating a move towards multimorphic textile forms. Next, I will examine one of these in more detail. Zero Waste Weavers by McQuillan, Pedersen and Walters, commissioned for the speculative film Planet City, are monomaterial, zero-waste woven textile forms that explore temporality via shape change through design, production and use. Here you can see design considerations relating to the design of multiple form and textural states from the outset. Digital prototypes from planar to form explore the expected behaviour of multi-layer 3D woven textiles with shape change yarn embedded. Sustainability was addressed in a number of ways, from the simultaneous production of textile and form, which enables on-demand production and automation, to its zero-waste design, and the choice to use 100% polyester materials, one yarn with heat-reactive properties and the other without. The interaction between these yarns, the weave structure, and the embedded form results in variable zones of shape change activation in a complex monomaterial outcome that can be easily recycled at the end of its life. The complex interaction between static and morphic yarns and the weave structures can be seen here. Variations in density, structure, and yarn position caused by the textile form composition can radically change the behaviour of the textile across its surface, and therefore the form that results. User activation is simple and able to be personally tailored for specific needs. The textile form outcomes were designed to have a particular aesthetic and form. As you see them here is how the design team delivered the outcomes for filming. However, the fit of the garments also needed to be changeable in use time, as the gender and size of the performers was unknown. This was possible due to the heat-shrinking yarn embedded in the textile form structure. Multimorphic textile form thinking can aid HCI designers to synergistically build behaviour throughout the textile system by materials, extending beyond use and interaction and into ecological time. Localized, variable, and tunable material experiences are seamlessly embedded via the material, its textile structure, and its form by design. This can be adapted specifically to individual users' needs at the time of design and production, and by the user themselves, to further enrich experiences and extend the product's life. We need to broaden the range of morphic materials and mechanisms for textile forms, and as new perspectives on morphic materials are developed, alternative means of production can also be developed to take advantage of these material properties, and could result in sustainably produced, perhaps even living outcomes that afford radically different functions and user experiences. In order to do this, however, textile knowledge within HCI needs to be further deepened by a collaborative skills building, a critical approach to the diversification of textile-based form production methods used, and the development of tools that support the visualization and evaluation of textile forms that change at different scales over time. Furthermore, textiles as malleable, relatively unpredictable soft material systems are often perceived as somewhat imperfect mediators of technology. Overlaying a predictable technology on a textile substrate can solve this, but may diminish the potential utility and rich interactions that textile complexity and malleability provides HCI. To fully utilize the potential of textiles in HCI, we need to be critical of the criteria used to evaluate textile interfaces, and instead celebrate the properties that we chose them for. We need to remember that sustainability is complex, and especially when working with novel materials, putting sustainability at the forefront may feel both daunting and limiting. Furthermore, it could be easy to be seduced by the notion that textile forms developed from a human-centric perspective is enough. Therefore, we need to develop design methodologies that embed sustainability to guide HCI designers in their design processes towards multimorphic textile forms. By providing a critical review of textile-based research and practice and textile forms across design and HCI, a vocabulary and prompts for multimorphic textile forms, we hope to inspire HCI designers to develop tools, collaborate on new materials and processes that enable the tuning of textile form behaviour across material interaction, ecological scales for conformal, seamless and sustainable outcomes. Thank you.